When I woke up from the coma, everything seemed like a haze. The first thing I remember is the blinding light and the steady beeping of the machines around me. It was overwhelming, like waking up from a nightmare and realizing you're still stuck in it. My head throbbed and there was a weight pressing on my chest. But through the fog, I saw her. Claire. She was there, sitting by my bed, her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the kind of tears you'd expect. It wasn't pure relief or joy. There was something off, something I couldn't put my finger on. "Hey, you're awake," she said, her voice soft but somehow distant. "I've been waiting for you to come back. I knew you'd make it through." It should have been the happiest moment of my life, right? I mean, after everything that happened, the crash, the uncertainty, the fear that I might never see her again, here she was. But instead of feeling the warmth I had hoped for, I felt cold. Her smile was tight, almost forced, and there was this strange look in her eyes that made me question everything. I could have sworn I saw relief in them, but it wasn't the kind of relief I expected after watching someone you love fight for their life. "How long was I out?" I asked, my voice weak. 13 days, she replied quickly. "You've been through a lot, but you're okay now. I'm just so glad you're back." 13 days. That was a long time. I tried to sit up, but the pain shot through my body, reminding me of how fragile I still was. I wasn't sure if it was the pain in my body or the aching sense of doubt in my heart, but something wasn't right. Still, I pushed it aside. I had to focus on getting better, on recovering. That was the only thing that mattered. As the days passed, I slowly began to regain my strength. Claire stayed by my side, though I noticed something unsettling. She wasn't the same. I couldn't put it into words, but there was a shift in her. She wasn't as affectionate as she used to be. The sweet gestures, the soft touches, the little things that made me feel loved, they were gone. Instead, she seemed distant, like she was just going through the motions. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was the trauma of what happened, the stress of everything, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. One evening, as I was recovering in bed, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Claire had her phone out and she was texting someone. It wasn't the way she usually texted, with a smile or a quick reply. This was different. She was typing something with urgency, with a smile on her face that didn't feel genuine. I couldn't help myself. I glanced over her shoulder, and what I saw made my heart race. It was a picture of her and Jake, my best friend. The guy who had been by my side through everything, who had visited me every day in the hospital, sitting there beside me, holding my hand while I was unconscious. The same guy who had promised me he'd keep an eye on things while I was out of it. The same guy who had always been there for me, or so I thought. I tried to act casual, not wanting to seem too suspicious. "What's up with the picture?" I asked, my voice a little too tight. Claire quickly put her phone away, her face flushing with embarrassment. "Oh, it's nothing. Just a picture from when I was at the hospital earlier. You know, just checking in with Jake." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The uneasy feeling was growing stronger, and I had a sinking suspicion that I was being kept in the dark. Why did she look so nervous? Why did she avoid my gaze? It didn't make sense. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I couldn't. Not after everything we had been through. But as the days went on, things kept getting stranger. Claire was spending more and more time with Jake. She would leave the hospital to go out with him, and sometimes she wouldn't come back until late at night. When she did return, she would claim she was just hanging out, catching up on old times. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. And then, one day, as I was sitting alone in the hospital room, I overheard a conversation that shattered everything. It wasn't Claire who was speaking, it was Jake. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard enough. "Yeah, she's so happy you're awake," he said, his voice low and full of an emotion I couldn't place. "But I don't think she's as happy as she used to be. I think she's starting to realize she's in too deep." In too deep? My heart pounded in my chest. What the hell did he mean by that? I listened harder, my body tense, the world outside my hospital room fading away. "I'm just glad you're okay, man," Jake continued. "But I think we both know things aren't the same anymore. She's different now." I didn't hear anymore. I couldn't. I had to get out of that room. I had to leave, to figure this out, to confront Claire and Jake, to demand answers. But when I tried to stand up, I collapsed back into the bed, the dizziness overwhelming me. My mind was racing, my heart aching, and yet I couldn't do anything. That night, as I lay there staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spun out of control. What had happened while I was in that coma? What had Claire and Jake done? Why hadn't she been there for me the way I needed her to be? Why hadn't she fought for me? The next day, Claire came to visit, but she didn't seem like she wanted to be there. She looked at me with a strange mixture of guilt and something else. It was like she couldn't even look me in the eye anymore. And then it hit me. It wasn't just that something was off. It was that she was hiding something, and Jake was a part of it. I needed to know the truth. I couldn't live in this uncertainty anymore. I had to find out what they had been doing while I was in that coma. I needed to know if everything I thought I knew about them was a lie. The moment of truth was coming, and when it did, I wasn't sure if I was ready for the reality that would come crashing down. The days following that moment felt like a blur. I could barely focus on my recovery anymore. My body was healing, but my mind, it was unraveling. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation I overheard and what it meant. Claire and Jake were hiding something from me, something huge. I could feel it in the way they acted, the way they spoke around me, the way they avoided looking me in the eye. Claire's visits grew shorter and more distant. She'd come, sit by my side for a while, talk about the weather or something completely superficial, then leave again, usually with a rushed excuse. It wasn't like before, when we would talk for hours about everything and nothing, sharing our thoughts and plans for the future. That intimacy, that closeness, had vanished. One evening after Claire had left, I made up my mind. I had to find out what had really happened while I was unconscious. I knew Jake was involved, and I couldn't just sit here any longer, pretending everything was fine. I needed to know the truth. So I did something I never thought I would. I called Jake. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. His voice sounded calm, maybe a little too calm. "Hey man, how's it going?" "Cut the crap, Jake," I said, my voice harsh. "I need to talk to you, now." There was a long pause. "What's going on, you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," I replied, my anger rising. "I know what you and Claire have been up to." Silence, then a sigh. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I shot back. "Don't pretend like you don't know. You've been visiting me every day, right? Acting like the perfect best friend while my girlfriend is, I don't know, what, keeping secrets from me? What the hell happened when I was in that coma, Jake?" Another pause. This one felt heavier. "Look, I don't think this is the right time to get into all of this." "No," I interrupted, my voice shaking with frustration. "It's the right time. I need answers. Now." Jake sighed again, and I could hear the resignation in his voice. "Fine, I guess you deserve to know the truth." He didn't need to say anything more. My heart sank as the words I had been dreading finally started to spill out. "Claire and we got close after you were in the coma. She was struggling, man. She was torn up, and I don't know, we started spending more time together. And then one thing led to another. I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. It was exactly what I feared, but hearing it from Jake's mouth, it felt like a punch to the gut. "So you're telling me," I started, my voice barely above a whisper, "you two were together while I was unconscious?" Not in the way you're thinking," he stammered. "It didn't start like that, I swear. We were just trying to help each other through this. I know it doesn't make sense, but I wasn't trying to replace you. It just happened. We both got caught up in it. The words rang in my ears like a drumbeat. I felt sick to my stomach. I had trusted Jake. He was my best friend. I had always believed in him, always had his back. And now this. Betrayal. "Is that all you have to say?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. "You think it's just that easy to justify? You're telling me that while I was fighting for my life, you were in my girlfriend's bed?" Jake didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. I never wanted it to be like this, but I know I fucked up. I know I ruined everything, and I hate myself for it." The anger boiled inside me, but there was something else too. Something I hadn't expected. A deep, gnawing sadness. I had never imagined my best friend and my girlfriend could betray me like this. They were the two people I trusted most in the world, and now they were the ones who had shattered everything. I didn't know what to say to him. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him how much he had hurt me, but I couldn't. I was too numb. "I don't want to talk to you right now," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice from cracking. "Just don't contact me again." I hung up the phone, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me. I wanted to break something, to yell, to let the anger and betrayal out, but all I could do was sit there in silence, staring at the walls. The next day, Claire came by as usual, but this time it was different. There was no forced smile, no pretended warmth. She looked at me like she was afraid I'd say something, like she was bracing for the confrontation. But she didn't know that I already knew the truth. "Hey," she said quietly, sitting at my bedside. "How are you feeling today?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, studying her face. For the first time, I really looked at her, the woman I had loved, the woman who had been my everything, and now the woman who had broken my heart. "I know what happened," I said, my voice cold. Her eyes widened, and I saw the panic in them. She didn't even try to hide it. "You know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah," I said, my heart aching. "I know everything about you and Jake." Claire stood up, her face pale. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. It wasn't supposed to go this far." I could barely look at her. The betrayal was too much. She was standing there, trying to explain herself, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't care about the excuses. All I cared about now was the fact that while I was unconscious, fighting for my life, the two people I trusted the most had betrayed me in the worst possible way. "Save it," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and heartbreak. "I don't want to hear it." She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Guilt, regret, maybe even shame. But it didn't matter. Nothing could fix this. Nothing could take away the sting of what had happened. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words didn't even register. I didn't care about her apology. I didn't care about any of it anymore. All I knew was that everything I had thought was real, everything I had built my life around had been shattered. I didn't say another word. I just turned my back on her and closed my eyes, the pain of betrayal seeping deep into my bones. The following weeks felt like an endless cycle of numbness. My body was healing, but my heart was still shattered, scattered into pieces I couldn't even begin to put back together. Claire continued to visit, but her presence was suffocating now. Every time she walked into the room, I could feel the weight of her guilt pressing on me. Her attempts at small talk, at pretending everything was normal, made my skin crawl. There were moments when I almost considered forgiving her, when I wanted to believe that the woman I loved could somehow come back to me. But the more I saw her, the more I understood the truth. It wasn't just that she had betrayed me. It was that she had chosen him, chosen Jake over me when I had been fighting for my life. That decision, the one she made while I lay unconscious in a hospital bed, was unforgivable. I remember one evening, late at night, when she came into my room looking more worn than I'd ever seen her. She sat at the edge of my bed and didn't say anything for a long time. The silence stretched between us, and I didn't know how to fill it. I didn't know what she expected me to say. But finally, she broke the silence. "Why won't you talk to me?" she asked softly, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry for what happened. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, can't we just talk about this?" I looked at her, my heart heavy. The words I wanted to say caught in my throat, but I knew this was the moment when I had to make a decision. Could I forgive her? Could I ever look at her the same way again? "I can't do this, Claire," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't pretend that everything's okay when it's not. I can't pretend that I'm okay with what you did." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't say that. I love you, I always have." The words felt hollow. They felt empty, like they had no weight, no meaning anymore. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done this," I said, the pain seeping through every word. "You wouldn't have turned to him. Not like this. Not when I was the one who needed you the most." She didn't respond. She just sat there, her hands clasped in her lap, her eyes staring at the floor. It felt like she was waiting for something. For me to forgive her, for me to tell her it would all be okay. But I couldn't give her that. Not anymore. "Please, just go," I said, my voice harder now. "I need space. I need time to figure out what to do with all of this." She didn't argue. She just stood up, wiped the tears from her face, and walked out. I didn't look at her as she left. I couldn't. The next day, I made the decision to leave. I didn't tell Claire, didn't say goodbye. I didn't want any more conversations, any more excuses. I needed to be alone, away from everything that reminded me of what had happened. I packed a bag, took my car keys, and left the hospital without looking back. I went to a small apartment on the outskirts of town, a place I used to visit when I just wanted to get away from everything. It was a quiet, lonely place, but that was what I needed. I needed to disconnect from the world, to process everything that had happened, to figure out who I was, without her, without Jake. But just when I thought I had escaped the past, it found me again. A week after I moved in, I got a letter. It was from Jake. I recognized his handwriting immediately. My stomach churned as I held the envelope in my hand. Part of me wanted to tear it up, throw it away, and pretend I'd never seen it. But another part of me needed to know what he had to say. So I opened it. Inside was a letter, a long one, filled with apologies and regret. He wrote about how much he hated what had happened, how he never meant to hurt me. He tried to explain how Claire had come to him in a fragile state, how they had leaned on each other during my time in the coma, how everything had spiraled out of control. But it was the last part of the letter that caught my attention. At the bottom of the page, there was a sentence that felt like a punch to the gut. "I know I've ruined everything, man, but I can't undo it. All I can do is tell you this. Claire and we're together now. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us someday." I stared at the words for a long time, my hands shaking. It felt like the world had tilted beneath me. My best friend, my girlfriend, together. While I had been lying in a coma, unaware of what was happening behind my back. I didn't know how to process it. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to forgive either of them. Not now, not ever. But there was one thing I knew for sure. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I wasn't going to let their betrayal define who I was. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay in this town any longer. I couldn't keep running into them, couldn't keep living in the shadow of what they had done. I packed up the rest of my things, gathered the few possessions that mattered, and left the apartment. As I drove away, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time since waking up from that coma, I realized that I was free. Free from the lies, free from the pain, free from the people who had let me down. I didn't know what my future held, but I knew this. I deserved more than what they had given me. I deserved more than a life built on betrayal and deceit. And I was going to find it, even if I had to do it alone. A year passed. I moved to another city, started fresh. I built a new life, met new people, and slowly I healed. But one day, out of nowhere, I got a package in the mail. It was from Jake. Inside was a thick envelope, and when I opened it, I found a stack of photographs. They were pictures of Claire and Jake from the days after I left. Pictures of them together, laughing, holding hands. But what caught my eye were the final two photos. A series of text messages, messages that I had sent to Claire, messages I had kept when I thought I might still have a future with her. And then, at the very bottom of the stack, there was a single note. "You both deserve each other. I deserved more." I stared at the note, the truth sinking in. I didn't need to be angry anymore. I didn't need to feel betrayed, because the truth was clear. I had walked away from all of it, and I had done what was best for me. I threw the pictures in the trash. I didn't need reminders of what had happened. The past was the past. And now it was time for me to finally move forward. I sat there for a while, staring at the trash can where the pictures and the note from Jake lay discarded. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for so long suddenly felt a little lighter. I had spent so much time focused on the past, on the betrayal, the hurt, but now it was time to move on, to finally let go. That night, I packed up the rest of my things, organizing my new life piece by piece. I had left behind the wreckage of my old self, the person I had been before the coma, before the accident, before everything changed. I was no longer the guy who had been consumed by love for Claire, or the one who had trusted Jake implicitly. I was someone else now, someone stronger. I decided to go for a walk around the city. It was a warm summer evening, and the streets were alive with the sounds of people going about their business. As I walked through the bustling streets, I felt a sense of freedom. I didn't know where I was headed, but I was moving forward, and that was enough for now. I thought about the past, but I didn't let it hold me back. I thought about the love I had lost, the trust I had shattered, but I didn't let it define me anymore. The future, whatever it might be, was in my hands now. It was strange how a year had passed, how time had a way of shifting everything. When I first left, I thought I'd never be able to move on. I thought I'd never be able to forgive them or myself. But now, I realized something important. Holding on to that anger, holding on to the past, wasn't going to get me anywhere. As I walked down the street, I passed a small coffee shop and I thought about stopping in. But then, I decided against it. It wasn't the coffee that mattered. It wasn't even the place. What mattered was the choice I had made to keep going. When I finally made it back to my apartment, I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. I hadn't let them break me. I hadn't let the betrayal destroy me. I had taken the pieces of myself that were still intact and built something new, something better. The phone on my desk buzzed, and I picked it up, expecting some spam message or a notification from a social app. But it wasn't either of those. It was a text from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity won out. It was a simple message. I hope you're okay. I'm sorry for everything. Maybe one day, we'll all be able to move on. It was from Claire. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, unsure of how to respond. The past year had been about me learning to let go, to move forward. And yet, here it was again. Another piece of that old life knocking at my door. But instead of feeling anger, resentment, or even sadness, I felt nothing. There was no point in holding on to what couldn't be changed. What was done was done. I didn't respond to her text. There was no need. I put my phone down and stared out the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. I didn't know where life would take me from here, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally free. I deserved more. I always had. And now, I was finally giving it to myself. And that was enough.